There goes the neighborhood. Good morning, everybody, and hello and welcome on this warm to hot Saturday afternoon, the last Saturday in June. Joyce is already making faces behind my back, and she's talking to our guest in the neighborhood. We actually have a live guest on the Dave's Gone By radio program of the air today. It is June 25th, 2016. I'm Dave Lefkowitz, the host and producer of this mix of comedy, talk, music, interviews, and more. The giggle you hear is my wife's. Now, what were you telling? What? Weather. I love the weather. I love talking about the weather. That's a thing that I do. So let's test the mics, which I know one of them doesn't work on our recording device, but does work going out to you all in the hinterlands. So say hello, guest.
Hello, guest.
Good. Now, what mic are you on? Keep talking.
The yellow one.
The yellow. Yes.
I'm on the yellow mic.
That's all. Doesn't help me on the board.
Do I need to move it closer?
What a great, actually, you can get a little closer to the mic.
Okay.
You have that great radio voice, though. His name is Brion Humphrey, and he is an author. He is also an educator. He teaches theater at the local high school. We got so much to talk about with Brion on the show. So Joyce and I will be talking with him. We'll also go inside Broadway for our usual look at the Rialto. We'll have Saturday segues on the show, 2 of them, as a matter of fact. We're going to have our usual in the news segue, where I'm going to play a bunch of songs and you have to guess why I am bothering to play them. Not just that I'm mad, but the idea is something happened in the world and current events, and the song is somehow tied to that. And we're going to do a 90th birthday salute to Mel Brooks. Awesome. So happy birthday to him. And anything else we're going to do? Yay! And Greeley Crimes and Old Times. So lots of fun. But I want to get started since we have our guest right here with us, Brion Humphrey. He's published a book called Sense Memory. Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. Double sound effects there. A book called Sense Memory. And as I said, he's teaching at the local high school, teaches theater. Plus, on top of all, this is almost my first question to you every time I see you. Okay, you write, you submit. Mm-hmm. Because we both belong to the same writers group that meets once a month here in Greeley, Colorado. And so you submit the stuff that you're working on from your next novel or other pieces. You're also working on a play. Sure. You don't teach during the summer, but you teach theater arts during the 2 regular semesters. And you have to direct plays and musicals while you're doing that. Right. You have a wife.
Yes.
You have a 3-year-old kid?
A 3-year-old, yeah.
Yeah. And starting next week, you start doing your master's in theater ed here at UNC.
That's right.
When do you sleep?
We got to clap for that.
Well, I read somewhere that as long as you get about 3 to 4 hours of sleep a night, you don't go too crazy and you survive a little. So
do you live on 3 to 4?
No. I go to bed around midnight, so I get about 6 hours sleep a night, which is plenty for now.
It's not plenty. Our dogs wake us up now at like 5:45, yeah. And it's not enough. I find myself napping during the day now.
Yeah. Luckily, right now, my wife is letting me sleep in.
Ooh.
And that means like 7:30, 8 o'clock. So.
Yes. But
thankful for those wee hours.
Is every minute of your day stolen? Is it taken up? Is it gone?
It's hard to balance it. What I've found is my wife is very good with our son at keeping him to a routine, and so she does all of his nighttime routine, and as soon as she's working on that, that's my free time to get all of my work done at night. I also am now teaching an online intro to theater class at UNC, so that's in the mix as well, and that's one of those things that I have to do that between 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock at night in order to keep everything up to date.
Good God. I mean, it's just, do you wish you had less to do, or would the time just fill up anyway?
The time, well, it's interesting. When I have less to do, I do less, and I get lazy and I lay around and I don't accomplish anything. When I have no time at all is when I find a little extra time to do that extra project. So the hardest thing in my wheelhouse is saying no to things, and I'm starting to learn how to do that. But
what have you said no to? Because you came on this show, so you're obviously still saying yes to a lot of crap.
Well, I'm happy to be on this show.
Oh, sure, yeah.
You're your friend. You're his friend.
Yeah, I know. We're friends.
His friend from the writing.
Plus, I owe you anyway. So
that's right. Yeah. That's right. Yeah, we don't have to get into that. But he had promised to help with when I was doing Miracle of Long John's in Greeley. and you were going to just help set up stuff.
Right.
And you forgot. 'cause you
I
were
flaked
busy.
on
He
you
did
like
kill it,
nobody's
Brian. He did
business.
kill it.
It was
Yeah.
good. It was
Yeah.
Well, Brian and his lovely wife was she with you?
Yeah. Mhm.
Came to see
In Boulder.
the show in Boulder. But you only saw half the show.
Yeah, that's right. We saw the second half.
Second half.
Yeah.
So
We call the money-making portion of the show.
yes. It's like a money shot. It's more like
Oh, Lordy.
So it's a runny shot, I guess.
Oh
So tell
boy.
our neighbors, so we can't say the puns, but one of our president of our HOA is a minister, and he loves to make puns, and he gave David puns based on the second half, none of which we can repeat in public.
Yeah, this is from
And
not a priest, but
And other people kept texting him, what did they text you? Other names for the show and other kind of sound effects to include. And
Yeah. People get into it,
So you need to do like an interactive version.
Oh, no.
Only if I can provide
Suggestions from the audience.
Oh, no.
Improv segment.
And then offer tetanus shots at the end of the
yeah.
Just give people like those aprons or those, when you go on Niagara Falls, you get the poncho. You should just give them a poncho.
Oh, God. I would love to do. Actually, I should do the show on like a double bill with puppetry of the penis. No, not me. It would be that's a different. Other people did that one
Yes.
off Broadway like 10 years ago.
Or I think you could do with Menopause the musical. I
That
think
too,
it'd be a nice
yeah.
show.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Cool.
good time. It would be a good time.
What did I see? What were the worst name for a store ever? Friends and I were up at in Golden last week at Red Rocks to see Bob Dylan, and we were just going through the town, and it was like there was a thrift store where the money was going to for good causes and stuff. But I think the name of the store was Cancer Thrift.
Oh no.
Like, put cancer in the name of your store. Who is going to walk in? You know.
That's bad. My wife used to work at a place in Durango called the Nut Shack. And you can see where that's going. Somebody stole the H.
Nope.
So, who would frequent this establishment, and what did they sell, Brian?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where
Where-
was
it was
it?
bad.
Was it a?
They
It was,
lost an
I think-
entire.
I don't know for sure. When she talks about it, it sounds like it was kind of on the main strip in one of those little side mall areas.
So I think that-
Snacks, or what did they sell? Like
Yeah,
snacks?
like nuts and well, there you go.
But they
and
lost
ice
their
cream.
entire clientele in a shooting at the Pulse nightclub, so it was horrible.
Oh boy.
No, but you know this story. That this is the greatest story ever. It was one of the things that literally kept me sane when I was commuting from Long Island to New York. Back when I was probably working for McCall's and
no.
Playboy. What? No. This is before. This is or do you remember this? We used to swing by. It was between
You used
like
to swing?
yeah, and then I married her, and
That's
yeah.
Where's my
There was a
noise
building
maker?
between like Laurelton and Rosedale in Long Island. It was like borderline Long Island, Queens,
Yeah.
and it was a big building that sold fences, and it had big letters, huge letters, fences, and either it fell
Oh, no.
or someone removed it, but the N had gone off the building
Oh no.
for years. And every day, I would look up from the book I was reading on the Long Island Railroad, and I have this moment of joy because we're passing the feces building. And somewhere on an old camera or on an old stack of, I have a picture of the feces building. It was like, and
It's got to be where you get your inspiration for your writing.
pretty much all of it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would look around at the people on the train, and I want to tell them, you're missing this. You're all into your own horrible lives and your miseries, and yet we're passing a moment of zen here. We're here with Brian, with Brion Humphrey, the writer. So when did you find time? You wrote the book before you had the kid, right? You wrote
Yeah.
Sense Memory. How did you actually? It's one thing to, as so many of us do, writers do. You write 3 chapters of a book. You get 40 pages into a play. You start something, or you do short pieces.
Can I ask him something first?
Yeah. What?
How did you get in that genre? Don't you find
Yeah.
it scary? Like,
Well,
don't
okay,
you
so-
get scared? That's
Well,
what I'm.
let's explain to the audience
explain
what your genre is.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's kind of horror, kind of psycho thriller.
Yeah. No, seriously. Yeah.
Yeah, with a bent of supernatural kind of a thing. So when I was young, and my sister's visiting right now, and we were just talking about this last night, that because now I have a 3-year-old, and there are some things that ever so often he takes my phone and he wants to watch cartoons on it. And so it's either these, like, My Bonnie Lies Over the Ocean, or it's Zombie Old MacDonald Had a Farm. And so when I see that, I have to, like, get it away from him, before he turns into me. And so my sister tells this story all the time about how when I was 3, my favorite movie was Beastmaster.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
What? At 3?
Yeah.
Who showed you that movie?
Well, I think I walked into the room once and it was on and nobody was in the room, and after that I wouldn't let them have the TV on unless Beastmaster was on. So it was Beastmaster or Star Wars. So that I kind of combined the two.
When I was 11 years old, my favorite movie was Breastmaster. Still is.
No, but that's very scary. You weren't scared as a child?
No,
Is
I
that
thought it was
Clive Barker?
awesome.
Which-
Just the
I don't know
fantasy
it.
concept
Yeah.
of Beastmaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's like sacrificing children and
Oh, cool.
He's 3.
Yeah, Rip Torn is in it, and he's super scary in that.
He's always super
Super
Well, that's true.
It was one of his sober roles. No,
Yeah.
but,
Wow.
did you understand it, or was it just something amazing to watch?
I think it was all the visual, and it was the concept of destiny and not realizing who you are. And I think that's why I was attracted to Beastmaster and Star Wars, is because in both movies you have someone who thinks that they need to aspire to be something more. They have this special ability that nobody else has, that they don't even understand themselves until it sort of comes to fruition, and then they just annihilate the antagonist at the end. It's very much like Dark City. It's the same kind of, there's just so many of these that tend to
But
be.
you
And
do
then
this at 3? Like at 3 years old, you comprehended the fact that somebody was fulfilling their true destiny.
I have no
And that's
memory
pretty
of
deep.
being 3, so I don't know if I figured that out until later. But I know that that's the type of story that I gravitate toward. And so, like, my favorite musical all growing up was Starlight Express, which, every time I tell people that who are in the theater, that's their reaction. They go, "What are you talking about?" But it's the same
don't know it
thing.
that
He would have loved Warp.
So you have this sort of underdog train that believes in the Starlight Express, this magical being train, and is asking him for help, and then eventually by the end, to ruin it for all the kiddos out there, he actually is the Starlight Express, and when he finally realizes that, then he wins the race and wins the girl.
That's just Buddhism. That's not really.
That's right. I
It
am
is
the Starlight.
enlightenment, but it's sort of self-awareness.
It's enlightenment. That should be a word.
do
I
you
just
ever-
coined that word.
Enlightenment?
Do you ever
Enlightenment.
scare yourself when you're writing?
Yes.
I mean, or do
Yes.
you?
Oh, really?
Because if I
Yeah.
watch scary things at night, like I like mysteries and I like some dark stuff, and I had a trainer who wrote like a lot of the zombie scripts and stuff. Remember Rob? And I used to
yeah.
read them. I couldn't read them at night because I would dream of it. Do you dream
Yeah.
of your? Because
Oh, yeah.
how do you shut that off?
I
mean,
don't. I'm the biggest
Dave,
chicken
I'm gonna go now.
Oh, really?
on the face.
No
of, I
kidding.
am a
Wow.
super scaredy cat. I'll be downstairs typing, and I have to keep going because I have to resolve something, or I feel like there are things around me, and then anytime that I go upstairs, if I'm by myself, I can't go upstairs without looking behind me, even though I know that there's nobody down there because I was the only one down there. Yeah, it freaks me out, but I think that helps, because then it's kind of the concept of I am the general audience for a lot of books, and when I read things like Stephen King or Preston and Child or those types of books, I'm very easily pleased and easily amused and entertained, and so I know the things that scare me.
David. Look, honey, shiny object.
Oh, yeah.
And so if it scares me, then I go, okay, I'll put that in the book, and so I try to scare myself, and if I can scare myself, then I think it'll work in the book. For a
when I'm
general
writing stuff,
audience.
if I make myself laugh, if I'm reading it, I can't keep a straight face.
Yeah.
I still know it's not going to appeal to everybody. I know that people are going to
Yeah.
turn off and will not be in my wheelhouse, but at least I will go, I know that's funny. I know that
But
works.
do you ever feel like
Yeah.
it'll become real? Do you feel like you conjure up this kind of alternate universe? 'Cause
No.
It's pretty scary.
Although what I have noticed lately, being a new father, within the last 3 years,
Yeah.
is there are some things now that I can't write about that I used to be able to, because I'm almost afraid of putting that energy out there.
See, yeah,
So I don't want to write about kids being killed. And in Sense Memory, there's an 8-year-old or a 7-year-old that drinks Drano, and it's forced on her by the murderer when he's young, and I don't know that I could write that scene now without being very, very careful with it, just because. I have it's the same thing when we go see movies, my wife and I, and there's a kid, like we just watched Jaws the other day, and when the kid gets eaten, she was like almost ready to turn off the movie, and so it's the same kind of thing now with my writing, which it's almost a barrier, but it's also one of those things where I just kind of feel like I'm moving into a different area with it. And I don't
can't say that you believe in, or maybe you do. Do you believe in ghosts, zombies, the supernatural, ESP, any of the above?
That's tricky. I believe in...
Well, Sasquatch?
Sasquatch, I believe, yeah.
Yes, Bigfoot. We know Bigfoot.
Sure.
And Loch Ness Monster.
She used to,
what's his Lockie?
Definitely Loch Ness.
She actually used to be your boss in the department, but
Sasquatch? I don't think so.
Well, I think I don't know that I fully would say yes, I believe that these things are out there. But what I do think is that energy is interesting, and that energy can be left behind. And there's a whole story that I was playing with the idea of where traumatic, tragic events leave behind an imprint, and so sometimes people are attuned to that energy and can see that as they pass by, and they may interpret that as a ghost or
well, I mean, would you buy like the Amityville Horror House when it was up on sale, kind of thing?
Would you? He doesn't even have Tide Pods now. He's so safe. No Tide Pods, no chemicals. He's not going to live in that.
I'd buy it, but I wouldn't go in it. So there you go.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask, because I had my former trainer wrote all those scripts, and they did it. Remember with the guy from Twisted Sister, he was in one of them.
He was in the packaging of it.
It was weird because he wrote about that stuff, and then all these like Twilight and the tween things, then they hit big. So I wonder, you did this before all of the stuff on TV. So did it bolster or help your work, or did you feel it was like a commercialization of the kind of theme, or how did you relate to the fact that you were first? You were writing kind of this similar things first.
Well, I think everything that I write comes from something that I've seen or read. Okay. And I challenge my students sometimes, because I'll find that I write something and I go, damn, that's cool, and that's, it's my idea and it's awesome, and then about 3 years later, I'm going through some of my old stuff and I find like a children's book where the same kind of thing happens, but I just took it and changed it a little bit and didn't realize what that influence was. So one of the things that I do with my kids, with my students when I'm teaching creative writing, is I challenge them to create something original that is not based on anything from prior knowledge.
Wow.
And they can't do it. Like I say, create a new monster. And I say, but it can't have anything from prior knowledge. So it can't have eyes, because we know that eyes exist. It can't have legs. It has to only have things that are purely original. And they all just sit there scratching their head going, I can't do that.
Yeah, right.
I know we know pipe cleaners.
No, but you can't even do that, because if it needs to see, seeing is a sense that we already have. I mean,
but why do you need eyes to see? There's echolocation. So there's all these different things that, as we discover in nature that these things exist, suddenly that becomes available to us. But if we're raised in a cave and we've never seen the color red, how can we imagine it and apply it to something?
Well, Led Zeppelin did. They managed to write Stairway to Heaven without ever hearing the Spirit song.
Ever at all. Yeah. So it kind of goes back to the whole, immature artists imitate and mature artists steal. And so it's not that I'm out there trying to steal everything, but I used to be really concerned with, I remember my mom saying, you need to read more. And I was like 11 and I was writing this story about dragons and stuff. And she's like, you should read more of these types of books. And I said, well, I don't want to, because I don't want to be influenced by them. And I'm over that now. Now it's I want to read as much as I can, and I want to experience as much as I can, because I know that I'm drawing from my past experiences. So it's much better to draw from broad spectrum as opposed to a very minute background.
And if they do a story on CNN about dragons in Florida, you need to know that.
Absolutely.
They find a couple, drags a kid through a lagoon.
Yes.
What about remember Puff the Magic Dragon?
Oh, yeah, he lived by the sea, by the way.
He was a good friend.
And smoked a lot of pot.
Apparently.
Oh, no.
Yeah, totally burned himself out.
Really?
That's right, yeah.
It's like
that little Jackie
the
paper.
Music,
We are here in the neighborhood with Brion Humphrey, the author of My Darling Wife Joyce, and me, Dave Lefkowitz, doing the Dave's Gone By radio program of the air. Can you believe it? It's like 25 after 9 already? And we have so much more to ask Brion, including...
I'll go get your shake while you talk to your friend.
You sure?
I'm getting a little scared. And when I walk outside, I'm going to look behind me. I'm a little bit...
That's okay. When you walk outside, I'll look at your behind. So
No.
I always do.
Oh. I'm too susceptible, honey.
I don't
Hate to see you leave, but I love to watch you go.
Oh.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, you need your... Where's your... You don't have your drum.
Oh, I don't have the drum. We have a noisemaker.
We used to have a drum thing, but we lost it.
Well, no, it's probably at home. I don't have all my...
You should let
Here's
Brian-
one.
There you go.
That'll do it. That'll work. Me one shaky surprise me.
What
but
flavor?
Not fruity.
Then tell me.
No,
Dígame.
no,
Dígame.
oh, no,
¿Qué
all
tipo
right,
de
okay.
cosa?
Cookies and cream.
Do you want anything, Brian?
No, I'm fine.
that's
Thank you
I
very much.
remember. Okay, yes.
Yeah.
It might even get more scary.
Coffee,
That would be very
coffee
bad.
morning.
So
Thank
Joyce will
you.
be back with us, especially when we start doing Greeley Crimes and Old Times. Plus, we'll go inside Broadway in the neighborhood today. Plus, we'll have Saturday Segways, a tribute to Mel Brooks's 90th birthday, and are in the new Saturday Segway. But first, more with our friend Brion. So, Brion, you also had, I assume it's not have anymore, but you had an award-nominated podcast. Are you
Yes.
still doing that?
I am not. The podcast still exists, and it's going very, very strong.
Oh, yeah.
I was the co-host of the Roundtable podcast with Dave Robison, and he is an immensely talented voice and creative energy. And so he and I became friends in Fort Collins when he was doing Rabbit Hole Radio Theater up there.
Okay.
Which was, we did things like taking mythology stories and turning them into radio plays. And it was a very, very cool thing that happened for, I think he did 3 or 4 seasons of that with his wife, Terry. She kind of produced and took care of the bookkeeping. But he's continuing to do it, and it's kind of his baby. And he called me at one point and was like, "Dude, you got to do this with me. Let's get this going." And so I co-hosted for like the first year and a half, and then all of this stuff came up, like we had a kid, and then the grad school and doing plays, and it took up so much time that I could only do maybe one every couple months.
It's one of the things you had to say no to, basically.
Right, yeah. But every so often he'll call me up and say, "Hey, we have a specific guest that is kind of within your genre. I want you to come on." And so I try to make it work as much as I can.
Sweet. And how can people find it? It's
on it's roundtablepodcast.com.
roundtablepodcast.com.
Yep. And it's really excellent writing advice. If you're into writing, you need to listen to it. It's basically what we do is there's 2 segments per week, and when he's doing a show a week. And the first segment is called 20 Minutes With, and it's where he and the co-host interview an author, a guest author that they bring on who is published or self-published, somewhat successful or very successful. We had Christopher Moore on at one point, Tim Pratt, and we interview them for about 20 minutes, which usually turns into 40 minutes.
Right.
And then the second segment is really the most fun, and that's where we bring that guest writer back or the guest author, and then we bring on an aspiring writer who has a story idea that they want fleshed out, and the 4 of us, Dave and I and the guest author who is successful and knows their stuff,
and the newbie
all sort of do a round table where we kind of spitball ideas for that particular writer. So it's a really cool thing, and I have learned immensely from being a co-host.
Sure. Yeah.
You learn more from other people's writing than you do from your own, and then applying it to your own is a whole other story.
And what award was that nominated for?
There is a podcast award for fiction podcasts called the Parsec Awards, and it's given at one of the cons. I want to say Balticon.
Oh, okay.
Maybe. And it's they nominate in different categories, and so I think the Roundtable podcast has been nominated twice. The first year that we did it, it was we were one of the finalists, which was really cool.
Yeah. Nice.
So, yeah.
So again, it's roundtablepodcast.com. It does exist, but the things that you were involved with mostly go back to like 2012-ish.
Yeah, it's like the first 75 episodes or so. I'm
God,
on
I didn't realize
most
they had
of
so
those.
many. Yeah.
Yeah, they just recorded. He brought me back on to record the 100th episode.
Nice.
Which was great, and then he's just been continuing it since then. So
Is it? Does he make any money off it? Or is it fun? Nonprofit incorporated? Is he?
yeah, it's sort of Creative Commons. When I was involved with it, we weren't making any money off of it at all.
Yeah.
He's gotten involved with some other groups through this, and a lot of the authors that he's worked with are independent authors who have their own projects, and so because he has such an amazing voice, he is always asked to help out with narrating some things. He's done a few Audible .com stuff, some books that he's narrated, and so he's starting to make some money off of those things.
Cool.
And there's another website that he's involved in called Under Librum that he's sort of spearheading the website itself, and it's going to be a bit of a moneymaker for him, which is great.
Oh, no, great.
Yeah.
Fabulous. Now, we've been talking a lot about the writing. You're also, how long have you been teaching high school?
I've been teaching high school I'm going into my 10th year.
Wow, okay.
6 years was English, which was sort of a roundabout way to get to theater.
Yeah.
So, yeah, when I first came out here, I came out here about 20 years ago. No, that's not right. 16 years ago. And I actually moved to Colorado 5 days before 9/11.
Wow.
Which was crazy. So I was totally displaced.
Well, from where?
From Southern California.
Okay, got it, yeah.
And when I first came out here, I had a degree in theater directing and was looking to do the alternative teacher license to be a theater teacher, and nobody was hiring theater teachers. I got a bunch of calls for people wanting me to teach music, which was weird. But
can you play? I don't even know.
No, I can't even read music. And so, like, I'd call them up and say, I'm a theater guy. I don't do music. And they're like, that doesn't matter. Just come on down and interview, because they were so desperate.
For music teaching?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I didn't, obviously. Yeah. I became a janitor, night custodian, which in Sense Memory, the main character is a night custodian.
Uh-huh.
So I was working in Estes Park at the intermediate school, and there were some weird things that happened in there with, like, the cart that I would use to clean. I'd put it in one place, and I'd go and clean something, and I'd come back, and it would be totally on the other side of the hallway. The elevator ran whenever it wanted to. There was just some weird stuff that happened in that building.
Yeah.
And so some of that I actually worked into the book.
Oh, sweet.
So, yeah.
But
pretty fun.
Eventually you took the English job. You weren't waiting for the theater.
Took the English job, did that for a little while, and then when I got to Greeley Central High School, I went to the theater teacher and I said, I haven't done theater for 4 years. I need to get back into it somehow. Yeah. And I said, I'll sweep the stage. Just let me come in and sweep the stage. I just have to be in the space. And so he let me direct one of the one acts, and then he saw, okay, this guy kind of knows what he's doing, and he was on his way out but hadn't told anybody yet. And so he just sort of started grooming me to take over his position, and now I'm the theater teacher there, which is awesome.
Which is, like, it was 2 years ago, I think. The other guy, what was his name?
Mark Kolikoff.
Right, right. How's he doing, by the way?
He's
met
great.
Him a couple of times, yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome.
Yeah. Can you? I'm wondering if my wife needs to get in the front door. Somebody's buzzing. So can you talk to the people for a moment? just remind them who you are and how they can find out more about your writing and get Sense Memory if you have a website.
Okay. So I'm Brion Humphrey, and I wrote a book called Sense Memory. If you are interested in communicating with me or looking into that on Twitter, you can reach me at Brion Humphrey. The Brion is with an O, Brion, Humphrey. Or I'm on my website. I haven't updated for a while, and so it's just WordPress. So it's brionhumphrey.wordpress.com if you want to get to that as well. And I'm on Facebook at Brion Humphrey.
So, Brion Humphrey.
Yes, sir.
You've got basically your dream gig. Now,
Totally.
You're teaching theater in high school. Why are you bothering then to go back and get a master's in theater education?
Right. Well, I would love to say that it was for a noble purpose. I am at a point in my career where I I don't want to get stagnant. I want to make sure that what I'm giving the students is current information. It's the best information I can give them. I can continue to grow. One of the things that I love to talk to them about is in Metallica, Kirk Hammett once said that he will, until the day he dies, he will continue to take lessons. And so he seeks people out. He went and took lessons from Joe Satriani and Steve Vai and all of these other really amazing guitar players, because he doesn't want to just fall into this place where he says, okay, that's good enough. So he's constantly trying to better himself. And that's, I think as an artist, you have to do that. And if I want my students to be successful, if I'm in it for them rather than for me, then I have to continue to better myself and bring them more and more techniques and better things. So that's sort of the slightly noble reason. The other reason is that everybody around me has master's degrees, and you get to a point on the pay scale where you just aren't going to make any more money if you don't have a master's. So
yeah, I mean, is it going to make a significant difference?
It does.
Cool.
It it's a good like 14%. So which is
okay.
Once you have the full credits. Yeah. And it's necessary, especially in this district where pay has not been at the top of the district's priority for teachers for the last several years. Although we do have a new superintendent now who seems really awesome, and she's working hard to get teachers what they deserve. So we're excited about that. Wow.
All right. Okay. And what's cool is you get to teach, or as part of being in this program, you're going to be teaching this online course. What course is it?
It's the Intro to Theater for non-majors. So it's just sort of an overview of theater. It's very book heavy, and which, as an online course, when you're doing theater online, you kind of have to do it that way. But I kind of wish it was a little bit more hands-on, so I may tweak some things. Was it a lot of video too? Do you send them to a lot of YouTube clips of... Yeah, they have to watch some stuff. There's a couple assignments that they have to do where they actually have to record themselves doing a monologue. So, okay. Yeah. But it's kind of funny because a lot of them are people who have never done theater before, and an exorbitant amount of nursing majors, which is interesting. So they're not really sure how to do a monologue because they've never done one before. So it's a lot of like, I'm going to stand here in front of the camera and just speak, and there's not a lot of actual acting involved. But when you're working with students that I can't get into a room with them and train them, you have to kind of go in with realistic expectations. Huh. Okay. What's your favorite play? Oh boy. So this may come as no surprise. Buried Child. Okay. Sam Shepard. I mean, it isn't macabre until really the last. There's a lot of not necessarily innuendo, but there's a lot of just dark overtones through a lot of it in terms of family secrets and who was sleeping with who, but what did that do to the family and the town, and so but it does have a hell of an ending. Well, yeah. That would be your kind of... Except you put it somewhere in, like, the bottom of the first act. Right, that would be the first act closer. That would. And it would get even more macabre and weirder and scarier. That would just be the beginning. Yeah. But you also have to direct, as musicals, right? You direct... Yeah. Most musicals are not Buried Child. You probably have to do R&H, and you probably have to do... Absolutely. And there's an aspect as a high school theater teacher, there are so many things that go into choosing a season. You have to know what your talent pool is. Who do you have and what can you do with them? Which is always changing because you have the incoming class of freshmen and you have no idea who's in that class or what they're capable of. Yeah. And then the audience, you can't alienate your audience because I can. Then you won't. Yeah, you can, but they love it, so that's okay. Yeah, at least I do. But if I do something like Buried Child at the high school level, there's a certain segment of the audience that's not going to come see the next one, and I have a sort of age restriction. We just did The Wedding Singer
Oh yeah.
recently, and you have to cut some stuff out of it because otherwise it's almost rated R, and so we cut it down to a point where it was, in my estimation, it was acceptable for high school, definitely not acceptable for elementary school. So we didn't have a lot of little kids coming. We didn't have many middle school kids other than the ones of parents who were like, my kid can watch Beastmaster, and so what I have to look at for the next season is, I haven't done very many shows that are super little kid friendly. And so this next season, we're going to do Cinderella so that we can bring back.
Be happy, or you're not forced to do A Christmas Carol.
Right, yeah. Which actually, this last year we did the Seussified Christmas Carol. So we kind of got Christmas Carol in a kind of a fun, goofy way as a little holiday show that was a fundraiser. So... But that was good. It was fun.
Is there a show that you wish you could?
Oh, boy. Well, there's a lot of shows that I would love to do, just never at a high school. I'm never going to do Les Mis at a high school.
Isn't there a high school edition?
There is a high school edition, but it's so similar to the original, and I just feel that I'm kind of a purist when it comes to those.
Yeah.
That I don't think a high school will ever be able to really do it justice. And it's so well known. It's kind of like trying to do Phantom or one of these where people come in with these massive expectations. And even if we have all the right singers, we're never going to reach those expectations. So I want to do something that is accessible to the kids and doesn't say, hey, look at the show that we're doing. It says, hey, look at how awesome these kids are that are doing this show.
What show was it? What show?
Well... talking about the ones that I won't do, and
in a high school situation.
In a high school situation.
Calcutta.
Kinky Boots.
Well, yeah.
I mean that's another thing.
There won't be able to do Kinky Boots. It'll be so part of the canon.
Also, it's place specific. So if we were in the Village or we were in New York, we could do Kinky Boots in a grammar school or preschool. It's relative of place. You have to be respectful of where you live.
Yeah.
And the next live musical on TV is going to be Hairspray.
Oh, really?
Which, if you think about it, is going to feature, I think it's Harvey Firestein in drag. So
nice.
That makes it more acceptable.
That alone is frightening.
and that's something that we could do. We could do something like that. We have a very forgiving community here, and it's a good, solid group. I haven't had any complaints. You get the occasional parent and student who are like, well, this material is not for me, and I totally respect that. I think that's very wise for them to be able to do that.
Wow.
So, yeah.
What was your favorite? Did David ask you?
My favorite play or musical?
The favorite thing,
I asked you what you do.
How about the thing that you thought would be a flop but turned out to be way, way better?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'd never think any of them will be a flop. But
or would be difficult, or maybe when you were in rehearsals, you're like, "Oh, geez, I'm a little nervous." White Knucklander and opening night.
So go big or go home, right? That's what my wife always says. Yeah. And so my first year as a full-fledged theater teacher, we did Midsummer Night's Dream. So we did Shakespeare, and they hadn't done Shakespeare for like years and years. Wow. And we did Fiddler on the Roof.
Wow.
Good Lord.
Yeah. So
in one season.
In 1 year. Yeah. So it was Midsummer in the fall and Fiddler in the spring. And so it was one of those where once Fiddler opened and I stood back and I looked at the set and I looked at the costumes and I watched the kids, and I felt like I was watching a legitimate show. And that's the best compliment that we get, and we get at every show, is this was not a high school production. And that's what we want. We want to have people say this seemed professional, or it seemed definitely above high school. And that's what the kids strive for too. And so in Fiddler, it was one of those where I'm looking at it, I'm going, holy crap, what did I do? And I would never, the set became so massive and took so much work that looking at it after the fact, it looked so immense and like something that I would never take on in a million years. But that's kind of the mode that we get into, is we just start building, and we know what we want, we're going to do what we can, and we build all the way up to the very last minute, and then we have this huge, massive thing that looks awesome.
Like, who does your costumes? Is it parents? I have no idea. Like, who does...
No,
do you have a costume shop? Or
it's evolving right now, and so when we did
wigs or like makeup, right?
Yeah, well, makeup is one of those that I definitely need to like start to figure out something a little better than what we have. I have a couple students that have really stepped up and are super interested in makeup. And so I've kind of been like, you guys deal with this and take it over. But we don't have any makeup. We have like a little community section of makeup, but it's not, there's hardly anything in it. And then the kids kind of bring in their own.
Too soon.
Yeah, we're not doing cats. Yeah. But the costumes, we have a teacher who just started a theatrical costuming class.
Oh, wow.
And so she's been helping me out, and she has her kids design stuff. And they're not at the point yet where I can say, okay, here's everything that I need, and then I get it all.
And just sew it up and you fit it to people. And,
right. Yeah. And we have some costumes that people have donated. We have a big costume closet.
Oh, good. That's huge.
So we have a lot of stuff to choose from. But we, every show that we do, I run out to the Arc and some other places, and I try to put some stuff together as much as I can. So I do.
You're going to end up doing that. One of the classes you're going to take is with Ann Toey over at UNC, and she's one of the design people and costume people, certainly wigs and makeup too. And one of the classes is you're going to go to the Arc.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then just stay there for 2
throw
hours.
stuff together.
Sing your song, your Macklemore. You always do Macklemore songs.
Oh, you're going to pop some tags. Put those
Got
costumes
$20
in
my
bag.
pocket.
Yeah, right?
Wow.
Yeah. So the costumes, that's kind of where that's going. So it's evolving. Yeah. And for one of the shows, I did rent costumes from this very nice lady who was renting them out of her basement and had taken it over for her sister-in-law. So her basement was like, it was racks and racks and racks of costumes.
In Greeley or was this in Denver you had to go or something?
Well, it was in Windsor, and it was one of those where it's on a donation basis because the city, her neighbors had complained because people were coming in and like stopping in front of her house. And so I think she's moved since and now is able to do it like where she can actually charge people. But it was one of those where she had these full Chewbacca outfits that
who doesn't?
People were coming in and like borrowing for Halloween and then not returning them, or they'd return it and not give her anything because she wasn't charging them. She couldn't legitimately charge them. Yeah. So, yeah,
well,
but that was...
If she's giving away Chewbacca costumes, that's just a Wookiee mistake.
We should have gotten our science fiction. We had a whole scary one of like ghosts. And
yeah.
stuff.
I left it home. I left it home.
Well, is there one? Okay, so this is my personal belief that even Little Theater of the Rockies or every theater company has one. They're like, here, let's bring it out and please the people. Is there one thing that you're like, I don't want to do something new, or like I just want to give something that's going to make the people happy? Like, what's your in the pocket kind of like, this is what we're going to go to, and everyone's going to love it. The parents will love it. The people will love it. The students will love it.
I asked them before if they could do Christmas Carol, and you say you kind of skirt that issue.
We did a version of it. Well, there's a couple that my wife always teases me. Like she's like, that you're going to have to do this. So Grease is one that people always love.
We saw it at dinner theater. Yeah, it's big out here. Yeah.
And it's I don't hate it. I love the music in it. It just doesn't have a story. There's no story to it, But and then the other one, and this is interesting because the classes are so different as they go through. And I've talked to my last year's seniors who were like, "Don't ever do this show." But then like last year's freshmen are like, "Oh my God, I love this show," and it's Bye Bye Birdie.
Whoa.
So I don't know. I might. But you know what I have found? There's a show. I don't know if you guys have heard of it, but She Kills Monsters. Have you ever heard of that?
No.
Like the kids are convinced that I'm going to throw that in within the next 2 or 3 years, and it's entirely possible that I might.
I've never heard of it.
It's based on Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
So it's this girl who she's like a cheerleader, and her little sister is into Dungeons and Dragons, but her little sister gets killed in a car accident. And so she was never close to her sister. She was always like, "Oh no, you're weird. Go away from me." And now she finds her sister's journal, and it turns out that she had written her own campaign. And so she, in order to get closer to her sister, she goes and finds the dungeon master kid that did these with her sister, and is like, "Take me through this and show me how this works." And so he says, "Well, I can't just explain it to you. You have to play the game." Of course. So they go through and it's really well done, and it's a great show. And it's high school age kids, as the characters. So it's totally appropriate. It deals with LGBT issues. It deals with all kinds of different stuff.
I mean, it's in American theater. It has to deal with LGBT issues. Yeah.
And it's
even
minimal.
Gay now.
And it's not like in your face type stuff.
Well, being your butt, really. But
Oh boy.
You just do whenever he's naughty. You just here, like you can.
you can do the same thing. You hold it up to the microphone now.
Anytime he says something you find offensive, just pick one. And
These are like emoji.
There you go.
There you go.
You can just try them all.
Anal warts.
We've got to find the scary one for him. He's perfect for
I know. I
adults
left it
to
at home.
watch.
I know.
What's the money one do? Oh, okay.
That's
of course.
money.
Yeah.
Cash money.
Oh, here's say anal warts again.
Anal warts.
Sometimes when they don't go together, it's funny, and sometimes when they
That's
do
right.
go together, it's funny.
Yeah. But yeah, so as far as like what you had just mentioned,
It's like you think you're gonna do that, eh?
we might. But it's also one of those where
Do you vote or do you pick?
I
do
pick.
The kids? Okay.
I pick. And I struggle with that every year because I do want the kids to have buy-in.
Yeah.
But I don't they don't suffer from that at all. Once I announce it, everybody goes out and buys the script and they start practicing and they start like they're just
nice.
totally invested regardless. I could say we're gonna do I don't know, Tale of Two Cities.
Yeah, they're just
Well,
scares them.
when I said Fiddler, when I announced Fiddler, it was the funniest thing because everybody's woo, and then immediately turned to the person next to them and they're like, "What's Fiddler?"
Wow.
So they all had to start looking it up, and none of them had ever heard of it before.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Can I ask you my one? This is my pet peeve question. David will love this one. Okay, so I'm a purist about accents. Either you do them well or you don't
Right.
do them.
Agreed.
Or you switch. Some people switch in and out of them, and it makes me crazy. I'm like, what are you doing? So, do they now? Some people also believe this in theater. I'm not a theater person, so I can say it. They believe you learn by watching clips of other people doing stuff. Seriously.
Right,
so
yeah.
I don't know, like, what's your? Let's say you get someone who's really struggling.
Mm-hmm.
How do you instruct them?
Yeah.
Or how do you help them either learn an accent or learn a role? Do you just say, go YouTube it? Is that your...
No.
Is that
No.
Is that
Well-
pedagogy?
Well, so it's no with a caveat. Like I will guide them to certain videos because there are some professionals out there that are accent trainers.
Yes.
And so if they have certain videos that are up, then I'll guide them to that. But I'll work with them, and if they can't quite get it, then we just cut the accent altogether.
See?
And most of the time, theater goers, they'll go unless it's something like My Fair Lady, where she has to have an accent.
Yes.
Then I would err on the side of not doing it. Now there's a show called the Musical Theater or the Musical Comedy Murders of 1940.
Didn't we go see that?
Yes, we did, yeah.
And I was in that in high school, and there's a character that specifically has to be Irish and have an Irish accent.
Yes.
And then it turns out he is German.
Yes, you remember the
So
character.
he has to have sort of almost a bad Irish.
He has to have
accent.
an Irish accent with
easy
German
to do.
undertones.
Whoa.
And so that was like impossible, but it was fun. So I got a German tape and I got an Irish tape. And so I learned the German accent first, and then I tried to use the German accent while learning the Irish accent. And
Hi,
I think
leprechauns.
I think what I learned from that was that I was being way too technical, and like nobody in the audience was going to get that anyway. So it was like when I was supposed to pretend to be Irish, I pretended to be Irish, and when I was supposed to pretend to be German, I pretended to be German, and people thought it was funny, and it was fine, and it wasn't a big deal. But
Isn't it more farcical to that show?
Yeah, it is, and so people are a little more forgiving.
Yeah.
But there was I at the Dairy Center once in Boulder, I saw. What is it called? The Plow and the Stars or something like that.
Oh, Charlotte Casey, yeah.
Yeah. And so there were a bunch of people doing, I think, Irish accents.
Oh, Lord.
And one of them sounded Australian. And it killed
It makes
killed
it
the
very
entire
different.
thing.
Yeah.
And you can't understand most of them because they're trying so hard that they're doing it too thick. So when I did Fiddler, I had my main character, I said, okay, start looking at some some different videos and watch the original with Topol and
even Zero, right?
Zero
Well,
Mostel.
is on, they can make a movie with Zero.
really?
They just have the movie with Topol.
But they do
Original
have
film?
some
Yeah.
clips.
Yeah, just of him on the tones.
Yeah. And so he watched those, and then I said, so I want you to go full bore with it for about 3 weeks, and then I'm going to start pulling you back to your normal speaking, so that then it was his normal dialect
That's a
with
great
the
idea.
flavor
That's good.
of that, and it worked out really well. So
That's a great idea.
Yeah,
That's a great
absolutely.
idea.
Yeah. We are talking with Brion Humphrey, the author and the theater educator, the teacher, and occasionally the actor. Did you ever do any professional acting, like grown-up adult acting, or did you stop that part in high school?
You're not supposed to talk about that on the air.
It depends on.
I'm sorry, yeah, I didn't think of that.
That doesn't sound right.
Did you have your tongue in someone's cheek?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, the couches. No, it depends on what you mean by professional. Like, did I get paid for it?
No, nobody
yes,
does now.
but not a
think it
lot.
just
Like,
means
it was
a
enough to
role,
put
yeah.
gas in my tank, you know?
Yeah.
I did when I first moved to, so I did some stuff when I was in college, but that was mostly directing. And then when I came out to Colorado, and I was married once before, and then that marriage,
I didn't know that. Okay.
it was kind of a glorified roommate kind of thing.
Okay.
And so when
And
we
what was
broke
his
up,
name? No, well, you are in theater.
Wow.
Okay.
but no, the
You
the
can
breakup
kick
was.
him. If you kick him under
You got
the
the sound
table,
effects too. Yeah.
That's
you know,
right.
You can feel free. He's really
Kapow.
he's not that sensitive.
Yeah. But no, it was seriously, it was like, she came home and said, we should probably get a divorce. And I said, okay, I get the TV, you can have the couch. And and she was like, really? And that was it. And so there were no tears, and it was fine, and everything was great. But, so it was at the end of that marriage that I was like, I have to get back into theater. Like, I can't be away from it. It's sort of similar thing to when I started teaching theater. And the Nomad in Boulder was doing Cinderella.
Oh.
And so I called them, and I was like, can I come sweep your stage? That seems to be my go-to phrase, and it works really well. And so the lady who was producing it said, well, come on in, I need a stage manager, and if you can run auditions for me and you work out, then I'll hire you for that. So that was my best paid gig, because I was a stage manager, the light board op, and the soundboard op.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
Costume, sound, and you got lunch.
Right. And I got about $1,000, and that was for 3 months of
that's-
work. And that was in the theater. That's a little more than gas. That's like gas and lunch for a few days.
Yeah. Partial rent.
Yeah, and then but then in that I met a woman who helped me get a gig directing The Lion in Winter in Longmont, and that won Best Show of the Season. And so I made some friends in that, which was great. And then
that really happened, because they say with the Tonys too, where if you win, like David won script thing, or if you win something, then people are like, hey, you become more interesting to people.
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Is
more
that
legitimate.
true?
Yeah, and I did. And so there were a few people who were like, well, you need to meet this guy. And
To you?
Yeah, to me.
Okay.
Well, no, they told me that I needed to meet this guy. They're like, you need to work with this guy, and it was Peter Anthony in Fort Collins. And
With
back
what
then he
company?
was a pretty
Yeah.
big name, and now I don't know where he is, but I know that he's doing like some music stuff, which is interesting.
Okay.
But he was directing something at Open Stage in Fort Collins.
Yeah.
So I went up there and auditioned for them, and then got called back for like 3 shows, and that's where I met Dave Robison, who does the Roundtable podcast.
Oh, right.
And he was doing Rabbit Hole Radio Theater, so he's sitting there with all the directors, and he's like crouched down with his eyes closed because he's listening for radio voices.
Oh,
And
Lord Almighty.
yeah, it was funny. And so then he approached
the
me
theater.
afterwards. And so I started writing for him while I was in a couple shows for Open Stage. And so I stayed with Open Stage for a few years, and then got my teaching job in Fort Morgan, which meant no theater for 4 years.
Oh, you were in Fort Morgan?
Yeah, we were commuting from here.
Oh, my Lord.
So it was like 2.5 hours driving a day, which was crazy. But when I was doing theater in Fort Collins, I was living in Estes Park and working in Boulder.
What?
So I would get up at 5:30 in the morning. This is the whole thing of I'm addicted to filling my schedule, right?
Yeah.
So I'd drive down to Boulder, which was about an hour and a half drive, and then from Boulder, as soon as work was over, I'd drive to Fort Collins to rehearsal, and then at 10 o'clock when rehearsal was over, I'd drive back up to Estes Park. And I did that for like a year and a half.
Did you live in your car?
Just about.
I was going to say.
I ate Taco Bell every day. My wife likes to joke about that.
It's
really
amazing.
unhealthy, but
Yeah, that you're still.
I know. Yeah,
like a
But you
still
were in your
alive.
30s at that point, or you still are, aren't you?
Yeah, I was actually in my 20s. I was in my late 20s.
But still, that's a lot of
Mid-20s.
wear and tear on the driving and so on.
And the body and soul. But you do it. That's what
Right.
you do.
I don't know if I've answered the question. I feel like I totally went on a weird tangent
That's
there. For
okay.
a
No,
while.
that's
That's
totally.
the norm here. In the Daverhood, there's no straight path to an answer. It's okay.
Now here's the deal with now you have we kept talking about Sense Memory, your book,
sure.
your book that you published,
Yes.
hard copy, physical hard copy, as well as ebook.
Right.
But
and it's on iTunes for free with me reading it, which actually I do want to throw this out there because for anybody who's writing or writes a book or whatever, I think this was the most important step that I had. And this was done like I was staying home with my son after he was born so that my wife could go back to work. So I stayed home for about 2 months. And so he was in like a rock and sleep thing right next to me while I'm recording the book for iTunes.
Wow.
And the recording process was the best revision process that I have ever gone through because I had to read it out loud and then I had to listen to it to edit out all the dog barking and all of that stuff. And so I was getting it in two different ways. I was reading it out loud, I was listening to it, and so I was able to find those things that didn't work or that I hadn't caught or I had worded awkwardly. And it made it a really fast and really solid revision process. But it is up on iTunes with me reading it. The first chapter is superly over dramatic. So just get through the first chapter.
Is
and
it
then
the full book on iTunes?
It's the full book on iTunes, which one of my students found it. And he was listening to it on his way to a forensics event. And in the very first chapter, one of the characters is whispering into this woman's ear that he's on a date with her and he's like the killer, and he whispers the word orgasm into her ear. And so my student, like at the end of the year, they do these brown bag awards, and so his was something about, we had no idea how creepy Mr. Humphrey is. And he's like, I didn't know until I heard him whisper orgasm into my ear because he's listening to me on iTunes. So
So do
you'll
think,
be the next Frank Fulkerson.
Oh
God
boy.
forbid. No. Do you think it's because this is the trend in book stuff? I know it's the way it is, and they always want you to do video and stuff. And I've actually had stuff of mine pulled down off of YouTube because it was like illegally posted, like PDFs and stuff like that. But do you think it helps marketing? Or
I do.
Do you think it takes away, like if I've got you on tape and I can listen to you in my car or when I'm on the plane or when I'm going, so how do you? Or does it make people want to buy other books? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, well, so one of my mentors is Nathan Lowell, and his wife, I think, works at the library here.
Okay.
Or did at one point. I don't know how long that's been, but he lives here in town. He's a science fiction author, and he got in at the very beginning of podcasting, and took all of his books and podcasted them for free.
Yeah.
And what it did was it created this reader base for him, this audience. And so there's a lot of people who he doesn't make any money off of because they just wait for him to come out with the next audio. But then there's word of mouth, and I might say to my wife, hey, I listened to Nathan Lowell's book from the golden age of the solar clipper, and it's his very first one, Quarter Share, and it's really great. You should read it. Or you should listen to it. And my wife doesn't really listen to books on tape. And so she would say, okay, I'll buy it. And then you've made a sale. And you have two people who are loyal then to you for your next book. And so one of the things that he said that I need to do, which I haven't done, and that's part of why I'm just stalled because of everything that's in my schedule now, is he releases 1 or 2 books a year and has gotten to the point where I think in 1 year he released like 6 books at one point. So he's got a ton out there. He just writes like crazy.
I guess.
Yeah. But his whole thing is you have to continue to feed your audience. Yeah. And if you, like, Sense Memory came out like 6 years ago, or 4 years ago, something like, I don't even know. Maybe it was 10 years ago. But I haven't put anything else out there since then. And so I have people who are like, oh yeah, I've read this and I really want to read the next book. He has to come out with the next book now. And that was 4 years ago, and I've lost that person, until I come out with it and somehow they see that, oh, there's another book, and then they might be willing to look at it. So if you just release on a constant basis, you can keep your audience if you're giving them good quality stuff.
With someone like you who has actually written and completed a full-length book, why has it been so hard to... Because you bring in stuff to our writers group all the time. Yeah. And it's always like the first or second chapter or a middle chapter of something else. Sure. And then, time goes, man. Right.
Yeah, well, so I have one that's done that I need to release. Well, it's okay. So it's the first draft is completed.
Okay.
I have to redo the ending. It was my wife is awesome. She's my one of my biggest inspirations, and she's great with ideas, and she's somebody that I always bounce ideas off of. So she's my primary beta reader, and she read this, and the whole way she's like, "Oh my God, I love this story. This is my favorite one. This is so good. It's awesome." And it's a zombie one. It's not about zombies, but there are zombies in it, sort of zombies.
Scary time.
Yeah, and
They're gay zombies because it's for
No.
the theater.
Yeah,
Maybe
there you go.
could do like a zombie fiddler. That would
that
would
would be
slay.
interesting, huh? Yeah. So would the zombies be the Jews or would it be the Russians?
Russians,
Yeah,
probably.
probably
Wow.
the Russians.
I
yeah.
think both.
They're at the window.
Just think when
waiting
people dance, they
Yeah.
can lose their limbs.
And then
stuff.
Laser
It's so
Wolf can
cool.
shoot lasers
There's
out of his
beams,
eyes,
that's right,
and
yes.
he's a werewolf, right? So Laser Wolf. There you go.
That is.
And you can't, they all have
Clever.
beards, so you can't tell who the werewolf
Exactly.
is at night.
Yeah,
Yes.
they could just look pale because
Yeah.
they're hungry.
All right.
You know, it's
I like it.
you know,
we've
before the
got something
program,
going
yeah.
here.
Ooh, not Tepka. Ooh, not Tepka.
So
Werewolves
now I don't
on
remember what the
Tepka.
question
No,
was.
that your wife is gonna.
Oh, yeah.
So you didn't
So-
release the book because you're changing the ending because your
Yeah.
wife vetted it and said,
So,
eh.
yeah, and so she's great at that. You know, it's when she's more than happy to be like, no, that didn't work. I don't understand what's happening here. And that's that was her reaction. I mean, it was very supportive, but it was like, no. So I have to go back and work on that a little bit. And I know what I need to do, but I've been saying that for a year and a half now. And so it's been sitting there. And now I don't even know if I have access to the file because my computer crashed. So I got to get my friend who's this
IT.
like IT genius
Do you
to.
do what what's her name? The Connie Willis told me. One time I was talking to her.
Well, explain to
She's
most
also
people know,
science
but
fiction, yeah.
Yeah.
And
she's a
she
writer
gave,
who
she
lives
gave
in
a
this
really
town.
nice talk. One of the really, I thought, most inspirational graduation speeches to students. And I write, but I don't write. I write.
Well, you write academic.
Yeah, they're academics. So they're a little more, they're
Technicals,
way
yeah.
drier. But she told me what she does is think about the ending, and then has that in mind. And then, because I said to her, like, how do you get like the book or the whatever you need in the beginning to be on that shelf, and how do you know you're going to use it like 10 chapters later?
Right.
And she said you think of the ending and then you say, okay, let me roll back and say, how am I going to weave in the fact that they have to be on the train at the same time, or they
Sure.
have to drop their glasses or whatever, like that part I can't get. Like,
Right.
do you write forward or
Well,
backward?
I'm a pantser, so I write by the seat of my pants for the most part. But like I have the
We knew
ending
we
in
liked
mind,
you.
and
I
I've
do other
always
things by the seat of my pants. Yeah.
That's right.
That's
Well,
why I have to change them. Yes.
for sense memory, I didn't know what the ending was going to be. And so I had a nugget of an idea that came to me when I was reading a Lincoln and Child book, and I had this memory, and of being in a restaurant with this really like plush carpet and a lot of deep reds and those types of things. And the more that I thought about it, the more I thought I have never been in a restaurant like that. I don't know where that came from. And so that gave me the idea for sense memory, where the main character starts having memories of killing people.
Wow.
But when he's like, I wasn't in that town when this supposedly took place. I was somewhere else. And so then he has to go to LA to kind of figure out why he's having these memories. So I started with that idea and then just sort of wrote. And I like doing it that way because then the characters take over. And there are things where I go, okay, in this scene, this character is going to meet this character and he's going to shoot him. And then so character B walks in, the one who's supposed to get shot, and has a bigger gun, or something happens where he just sort of laughs at him and walks out. And I'm sitting there as the writer going, what just
not what you
happened?
wanted. Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not what I meant to have happen. Why did he walk
Wow.
out? And the characters kind of take over at some point, and I then have very little control over them. And I love that because then I'm reading the book as I'm writing it, as opposed to
Yep.
it being very stolid and
Yeah.
contrived. But with the one that I'm doing right now, I had the ending in mind. The problem
When you're
was
changing the ending?
well, yeah. Well, but I'm not changing it significantly. I'm fixing it. And what happened was I had Christmas break to finish it. And like those are the only times that I have to write are those little breaks when I'm not doing master's
Everything
degree and
else,
I'm not
yeah.
doing school,
Yeah,
I'm not
wow.
directing. And so I sat down and I was like, I got to get this done, and I just hammered it out. And so it feels rushed, it feels
As one of our writer colleagues, she always, she has nothing else to say. She says, it feels drafty.
yeah,
She
yeah,
can't
exactly.
explain why, but it
Wow.
feels
Feels
drafty.
drafty.
Like the first
Yeah.
draft.
Yeah, but I always write that when I read even student writing, and I say, this is good for a first draft, but it's not going to cut it for
Right.
the final product.
Sure.
So you
Because
can,
you
can
can't
tell
put
what
your
a
finger on
draft
it, but
is.
Yeah.
you know
It needs a
that
little
it
bit more
needs,
revision,
yeah.
or
Yeah.
would be rewritten, or yeah.
Yeah, so I did. I rushed it, and I need to go back and give it the time that it deserves. So
Well, we are very happy to have had the time we deserve with the delightful Brion
gosh.
Humphrey, the author. You can pick up Sense Memory. Remind us of the website.
yeah, you can get it on Amazon. The Sense Memory website is it's just brionhumphrey.wordpress.com.
By the way, I want to
Spell,
tell
yeah,
people
spell
because
too.
it's not spelled the usual way.
Right, it's Brion.
Brion, yeah.
Humphrey, HUMPHREY.
.com, yeah.
.com, yeah, or at .wordpress.com. And because I don't have like a legitimate website, but that's okay. I do WordPress because it's free.
Everybody's doing WordPress
We
now.
love WordPress, yeah.
But
fine.
do you own BrionHumphrey.com, the URL?
No, I need to.
Buy it.
Yeah,
Point,
I
and
need
you can
to.
point the WordPress to it. That's no big deal.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
Mr.
I'll do
IT
that.
man.
I'm just saying.
David is
Yeah.
moonlighting as IT for them.
But it's
yeah.
it's available online, or the book itself is in Kindle form. It's in
good.
hard copy form. I'll be changing the cover soon because the cover shows a picture of a woman with duct tape over her mouth, and she's been pretty badly beaten.
Yeah.
And I have had
hot.
people tell me.
So I don't, because I can't remember it in my mind. Is it real or is it a real woman
You
or
have
is
to
it?
read the book, honey.
No, no,
The-
no, no,
the
no.
picture?
But I mean the cover.
Yeah, it's my wife.
Whoa.
So and
Wow.
I took a picture of her. I told her to look like she was screaming. And so she tried a few times, and so I photoshopped and I did all this stuff to it to make it look really bad. But for some reason, every picture that I had of her trying to look like she was screaming, she looked like she was laughing.
Oh, geez.
So I had to
That's not
cover
the
her
goal
mouth
for you.
with something that looked like duct tape in Photoshop, not in
Photoshop,
real
yeah.
life. Yeah.
Good to clarify.
In order to make it work. But the problem is, so I've had a bunch of people say that they bought the book, but they got it on one of the special promotions where it was really cheap, and they were gonna read it, but they just kept being turned off by the cover. And then even Amazon, they have through their KDP thing, they've got a promotion that you can do, but mine doesn't qualify because it shows violence towards women on the cover, and so I can't use that promotion. So I have to change the cover.
But
so.
that's also good too. I think when you do something the first time, like I rejected a cover from a university press because I just didn't like it.
Right.
And I'm very, everybody has their hang up. I'm very visual, and I don't I'm like NO, because what I learned from some people, my friend's son actually did artwork about it. Was a race book, but about someone with a flag on their face, and that the cover really sells it. And sometimes you change too as a writer, and you may be like, okay, I like that then, but now I would.
I mean, that's the amazing thing about the weird thing about your book is that you had it hard copy published, and it's changed. Then you did the audio, right, and then you did the ebook. So those are different, right? You made revisions after.
Wow.
I made revisions after, but I re-uploaded because it's self-pubbed. It's not through a publisher, so I have total control over it.
So
And
if you send somebody else a hard copy, it will be the most recent.
yeah.
It won't be
Maybe
like
with
So
the
there are a
cover.
couple different versions out
wow.
there because some people bought the hard copy early, and I bought a bunch of copies early. So
How do
I
you
have
identify it? Do you have different, or is it the same title with just different versions?
same title, different,
Wow.
but it's not significant changes.
Okay.
It's like it's not like I added a chapter or took a
Or
chapter out
character or something like
yeah,
that. Okay,
it's
wow.
mostly I realized that I used the term clip instead of magazine and caught a bunch of hell from a bunch of military guys for that.
Oh,
so I went
Lord.
through and changed it. But that's
Same
a
thing happened
whole
to
other
Omar Mateen, by the
conversation.
way,
There you go.
Oh, Lordy.
So yeah, and that's something that when you have a bunch of friends that are like
That's
they own
intense,
guns,
yeah.
they will be the first ones to tell you when you do something wrong with guns. And there's a lot there's some gun stuff that happens. I have a cop as one of the main characters. And
they guns are part of their job.
and then the bad guy has guns. Everybody's using guns.
Well, if you read a
And-
book about aging and you see stuff that to you is this is the first thing you're going to notice that other people won't.
Right,
You're gonna be,
yeah.
Well, that's an ageist term. Well, we don't
No,
use
I
that
just
anymore.
say that all the time, but
Yeah.
because we're snarky, and it's just because I'm snarky.
And it's
I think-
your expertise for them.
Yeah.
It's
And that's the that's what you have to do when you write it. You have to pay attention to those details. Because I shot a gun once when I was like 11, and it was a police officer who took us out in the woods and said, "Here, play with my gun." Not like that.
Was his tongue in your cheek?
Oh my gosh, no! But I remember firing it, and I don't remember much after that. Like the recoil was so heavy.
Yeah.
Was
so
it a shotgun or was it a
it was just but it was like
Gun
it
guns
was like
are
a
harder.
45. It was
Yeah,
crazy.
The kickback is bad.
You
Yeah.
think 45 but I tried firing a 78.
Wow, that's a
Yeah,
record.
just spun.
Oh. So
So,
what?
yeah.
Do you know what your new cover will be? Do you have
No,
an
no, I
idea?
haven't figured it out yet. But I need to do it soon.
I can volunteer to hit her
No.
and put duct tape over her mouth, and we can try that.
So here's the thing. So people should go buy it now before I change
That's
the
what I'm
cover,
thinking, 'cause
so
I
that
would
when
want
I'm
both.
famous
Yeah.
and I'm like Stephen King, then they have this anomaly.
I would
book that-
actually try to get one of each version. That's why I
There you
asked
go.
if you numbered them, because I watched
Right.
the Antiques Roadshow and all those the antique things. And if there's a difference, like if they misprinted one time and they put the E and the E was a little bit tilted, that one's more special.
Right,
So you have multiple copies of the same book and people won't know.
Right.
But I would
no,
want to
I
know
mean,
all of them. I would actually get all of them and read to see where the changes were, because that's what I like to do.
Well, no, I had this
Be like a
depressing.
capital T instead
I
of a
would like
lowercase
to see it.
t.
I'd be like, what does he mean? Where's the change? I don't
Right.
think there's.
Remember, I had this depressing moment because I got it like a library book sale, a copy of To Kill a Mockingbird. You know, no dust jacket,
yeah.
hard copy, and I got it opening up at home, and it was copyright 1962 Lippincott, and it was like first edition To Kill a Mockingbird, but it had a W under like the copyright notice, which meant it was a book club edition of something, and it didn't say. First edition, ninth printing. It didn't say any printing.
Wow.
I thought, but apparently with that W, it wasn't the. So instead of being worth $3,000, it's worth
A
like
buck
20
$50,
bucks.
$1.50.
Yeah,
Right, yeah.
It's worth what I paid for it. Yeah.
25 cents.
So that
Totally.
little
little
it's the
difference.
Same book,
Yeah.
same first edition, but not the first printing of the first edition.
See, and I would love to be one of those people who can look at those and say, oh, yes, this is this, or because of this little thing. But instead, I just write characters that can do that so that I can live vicariously through them.
Did you ever want to make your writing go into like a script or go into like movies? Because I would think that even my friend who was kind of doing the same thing and then it blew up with all this stuff. Think of like even these Twilight or the tween movies that have the zombies or the Walking Dead or Living Dead. Like, why don't you write for them? I know it's easier said than done, because I know for him he always says, like, just do this, But did you ever have the bug to say, like, I'm just going to go Hollywood or I'm just going to write a script, take my stuff and send it or write it for one of the shows that match?
Well, I wrote a script once called Junction City that was about, it's kind of an Old West where these two brothers wander into this city called Junction City, and it's kind of like purgatory, where it exists between the two worlds, and the guy who runs it is he's kind of like an incarnation of a portion of the devil in a way. So he's not like the devil, but he's pretty bad.
It's like Donald Trump.
Yeah. Purgatorio. No, Purgatorio. It's like the middle ground.
There you go,
I didn't even get to
yeah.
ask you that this guy. You build yourself as a Republican. We got to talk about that.
Oh well, I'm finding that I'm more like libertarian. I'm kind of like I'm
That's happened to a lot
fiscally
of people.
conservative, a little more socially liberal.
I hope.
Yeah, but and it so it's I want to keep my money that I've earned and choose where it goes, as opposed to have somebody else force me to put it somewhere where I don't think that it belongs. But I have a lot of friends, especially being in theater. A ton of my friends are in the LGBT community, and what they want to do is what they want to do, and that's totally fine with it. Like I should not have a say in their in what they want to do and who they want to love. I think that it's important for people to be able to love whoever they want. So that's where it's like, I find that I align a little more with a lot of the Republican ideals when it comes to like how to run the country and how little government there should be invading our lives. But I also feel so it's like,
Did you like your
let's
high
keep
school
our
having
hands out
money
of
for a
as much
theater
as anything.
program?
I do, but I also I come from a high school where we didn't have any money, and we did amazing theater. We raised our own money, and we did what needed to be done in order to still do what we want to do. And so I don't think that it needs to be a question of I need these other people to fight for me to get me money. It's I'm gonna do the best theater program I have with whatever I have, and it teaches people to be self-reliant instead of I can't do this because I don't have funding.
Okay.
So
That's a very well-reasoned answer, I must say.
That's very deep. Wow, you're so deep for David's show.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow, man, that was deep, David.
But you still cannot vote for Donald. Please tell me no. No.
That's his private,
Well,
special
yeah,
private
I don't know.
time.
I can't vote for Hillary either, so.
Really?
Yeah, and it's what's interesting is in this particular race, my wife she put something on Facebook that I feel like I showed her first, but she put it up, and it was if we're gonna vote for batshit crazy, then we might as well. And so it's got Willem Dafoe and Gary Busey like as the ticket.
Yes.
You know.
Wow.
Yes.
So I'm thinking this may be a write-in year. This may be a
think
year
so.
where I think there needs to be a grassroots movement.
There is a
where
libertarian candidate.
There is, but he's like I don't like him either. I mean, at first I did, but then he just seems weird and smarmy, you know.
Most
and,
libertarian.
yeah. I mean, he just smokes too much pot. But
Oh, well.
he so I kind of feel like there needs to be some kind of grassroots movement for some just ridiculous write-in. That if enough people write it in, then
Not
that's
you,
the
David.
that's the message that I'll vote for you.
No.
Bill Cosby.
Oh, no, and no.
No,
Well,
we're not.
yeah.
We're supposed to be going in the other direction.
There's a joke in there somewhere, but I'm
That's
not gonna. Anywho, so I'm sorry I sort of interrupted.
And
you,
I
right?
mean
So-
quality when I say the other direction. I don't want that to be
Like
misconstrued
Gary
as like a
Busey.
race thing or something. Yeah.
Wow.
So
But I'm sorry. What question
Yeah.
were you sort of answering when I brought up the
I have no
political
idea.
stuff?
It was. I asked him before you went into the political. Did he ever want to write for the sellout?
Oh yeah. So
Evil Empire. And he
so
said
I
he
wrote
the
a
thing about
script.
hell, Purgatory.
That's right. And so I wrote the script, and it was fun and it was cool. But I've read too many books on writing. And so I'm overly influenced in the wrong direction where, sometimes you hear advice and you're like, oh, yeah, that's absolutely true. And I don't know if it is or not. And the advice was that, write the book first.
And then make it a script?
Yeah, and then make it a script because it's statistically speaking, but this was like 20 years ago, that it's a lot easier to get a book published than it is to get a script purchased. The other thing is I don't like Hollywood. I lived in Southern California.
Oh, wow.
I went and signed up with an agency once, and the drive out to the agency and the drive home convinced me that I wanted to move out of California.
Whoa.
It just the people driving through LA and seeing the normal people, the people who live there, the people who actually exist, not the glitz.
Yeah,
and that was
the
something
reality.
I was looking at some of the buildings, and I also used to work at Disneyland. And Disneyland,
That's a crazy place.
I
wanna talk
loved
about
it.
Purgatory?
I
Oh,
loved
Lord.
working at Disneyland.
Oh, you loved it?
Oh, it was great. Yeah, I mean, I was seasonal, so I only worked a little bit.
That's why he writes the horror stuff.
Yeah.
It's the backstory of Disney.
But
It's
it was-
a world
it was awesome.
Of
It was a-
zombies, a world of ghouls. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was great. But the thing that was interesting about it was, you have the backstage area where the employees come in and they're in the backstage area, and then when they go on stage, which is what they call it when you are in view of the.
I read actually a sociological piece. They can't take off the head. They have to smile all
Right,
the time.
yeah,
They're kind of
yeah.
brainwashed into like a certain code of acting, and you have to be a certain way.
You
or
do.
You get I forget the
Sanction,
sanction, but there's some sanction if you get
Yeah.
caught like. Because one time I think weren't we pinched by
Not
what are
us.
what are those squirrels? One of them pinched me.
Chippendale?
Yeah, Chippendale was one of them in a group photo. Yeah.
Maybe they
That's
were
funny.
just looking for other Bieber. But,
Oh,
thank
gosh.
Kill you.
You're so bad. I
But you
love it.
loved
though.
it.
I
You
do.
loved
I love it.
Disneyland.
I loved Disneyland, and
Well,
there's
Beaver
some
too, but-
like I worked for Walmart too, and I loved them too. I thought it was a great company to work for. And that's so here's what I've found is that when people put down things like Walmart, they put down
Yeah.
Disney, and they're like, oh my God, it's a terrible company to work for, and blah blah blah. Either they haven't worked for them, or they're one of those people who they don't want to do anything and they want to get paid for not doing anything. And that's what I found most of the time. The people who
Wow.
complained were the people that when I was working there, I'm like, I would not promote you.
Wow.
You don't do anything, and you complain the whole time.
Yeah, but if you're
Wow.
promoting at Walmart, aren't you still making $8 an hour?
No. Well, now it's $10 an hour
Oh,
to start,
excuse me.
which is definitely better than 8. But the people that I worked with, a lot of the people that I worked with at Walmart don't deserve $8 an hour
Wow.
because they don't do anything. They stand there. People come and say, "Hey, do you have this?" And I go, "I don't think we carry that."
Oh.
As opposed to me, who they come to me and they go, "Do you have this?" And I go, "Well, let me go find it." And then I go and I find it
We
for
ran
them.
into a
and-
couple of people like that at,
Yeah.
what was it, Lowe's yesterday, Lowe's Hardware. Who last time, 2 times we went to Lowe's Hardware, they were like, oh, yeah, come with me. It's,
Right.
We're pretty sure it's over there. And it's
Yeah.
Well,
And if I
we
don't know,
you.
I'll find out for you, you know?
Or a
And
guy at
and
Target,
those are the
yeah.
people that get promoted, and those are the people that end up making more money and learning more skills and becoming better. And,
But
and
with all
that's the
the
thing.
making $10 an hour is not making more money. It's
Well-
starvation wages.
It's
you know.
not. It's not. That's the other problem. And not to totally get into political stuff,
But-
but the biggest issue, and I see this as a high school teacher because I see these
Oh, kids
attitudes.
looking for work,
And
yeah.
what it is it's people who say, I want to live in my own house and have my own car and to be able to order pizza every night, and these are the things, and I want the newest electronics, and I have kids who are walking by who go, I don't have money to buy a notebook. For your class.
Mean an electronic note, not
No. I mean, like, I don't have money to buy a 67-cent, but they have an iPhone, and they have the newest shoes, and they, and it's a culture of I deserve, but I don't want to put any effort into it, and I see it so much. It's rampant.
Health insurance takes. And a
this
car
is true.
is necessary. A car is not a luxury.
A car is necessary, but you don't need a brand new car with a $300 a month payment.
Yeah, but an old car is
$7,000.
$7,000.
No, you can buy on Craigslist. You go on Craigslist, you buy a car for $600, and it gets you around town, and that's all that you need.
I mean, I always,
to start out.
I judge the same thing because my phone, I have a Samsung, and it's a 4, and I love it. It's a simple phone, a smartphone. There are people. I probably make more than the students, obviously, without financial aid. But with financial aid, you can do well. Yeah. And they have way better electronics. I'm thinking, I'm debating to buy a new laptop, or I really wait, and I think it's what you're saying. It's where you choose to spend your money.
Right.
It's but I think even for us, like we have CNAs, we have people who work with older people, and they're pushing for 15 as minimum. And
I think that's righteous.
And I don't have a problem with that. And here's why: because what you do as a CNA, you need to be making more money,
and
especially if you're good at it.
Taken out from the company, so you never really make the full 15.
But I'm saying, if you are flipping burgers at McDonald's, you are in hot grease, dealing with the public, cleaning the countertops, flipping, and they've got you for 60 minutes of that hour doing awful work, and maybe mindless work. But it's,
welcome to entry level. Yeah. And if you don't like it, and you don't like the money that you're being paid, then learn a new trade and go into a different area, because that's what it's for. Here's the problem. If you say, okay, McDonald's, you need to raise your wages so that to make it fair. People don't get into business to be social warriors. People get into business to make money. Sure. And so what McDonald's is going to do is they're going to go, okay, if you're going to force me to do that, then when people come in to order their food, they're going to be greeted by iPads at the front, not people. Oh, wow. And they're going to order their food off of iPads, and the people that we're going to have are going to be the people in the back making the food, and I can have half as many people working for me, I can pay half as many, and I can still meet the demands of society saying that I need to pay people more.
Well, then let's turn it around. Then let's say McDonald's can say, we can have people who are there to individually help you. We can have butlers and tons of people working behind the counter, so you get your food so much quicker. Wow. But we're going to pay everybody $3 an hour.
Yeah.
But who's going to work for that? Nobody's going to work for that.
But that's
especially now that there is a minimum wage that is so much higher. People are going to say, "Well, I'll go over to Arby's, who pays a little more." And so that's where the competition comes in. That's where the free market works. Is that Arby's says, take. What's the place that every time that we go to the West Coast, I swear to God that I'm going to go there. In-N-Out. In-N-Out. It's for some reason the last 3 trips that my family, my wife and son and I have taken to anywhere where there's an In-N-Out burger. Yeah. Every time that we get there, it's either closed or I
guess it's out.
Yeah, it's out. It's not in. Yeah.
But
I'm like, if I don't have an In-N-Out burger in the next year, I'm going to die, I think. But they pay their people $12 to $15 an hour.
Okay.
Right? So you go there, you get excellent service, it's very clean, the workers are super efficient because they're hiring the best people because they have a good pool of people coming in, right? So McDonald's, if they want to give better service, they're going to pay more so that they can get better people. But they're looking at it as, well, people have a certain expectation of us, and we can maintain that expectation and still make money, and so we can continue to pay people
Starbucks
a low wage.
Chose to give people health insurance after 3 months.
No, and also university benefit, which is great.
That too.
University benefits, that must be... super duper.
I know. I just think if you let capitalism just be capitalism, all companies would pay $4 an hour.
But they wouldn't survive. They just wouldn't survive. People wouldn't work for them. They'd go work for the company that pays a little more. It's the same thing as like what we see right now in the public sector in teaching, right? The salary schedule that we have here in Greeley needs to be fixed.
No kidding.
And I'm a 10-year teacher. I'm still being paid as a second-year teacher.
Wait, they have tenure in high school?
No, not tenure. I'm a 10th year teacher.
But they do have
being
tenure
paid as a
even
second-year teacher.
in the primary school system back home and high school system, your family they have tenure. In the public schools, they tenure
and we have
them
kind
and
of
they go.
a form of tenure.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
it's not to the extent where it used to be, which is I'm actually glad that it's not, because I don't think people should be like immune to.
We always have that discussion. It can be dangerous. Yeah.
But if there's a bunch of people that we have that keep leaving Greeley because they can get paid more in Fort Collins, or they can get paid more in, and they have the money to do it, and so they do. Whereas Greeley is kind of struggling right now. They're doing a lot better. They've been cutting, from the top down and freeing up some money, and so they're going to be able to pay teachers a little better and bring in some new folk. But we're seeing the issue here at UNC, I've been hearing this, is that teacher candidate numbers have dropped, and there are less people going into teaching. But part of it too is that the demands on teaching are so much higher now.
Wow.
So you have more demands on teaching, the pay hasn't gone up, and so people are leaving. And it's the same thing at McDonald's. If you have more demands on people and you don't raise the pay, people are going to leave, and then their business is going to go under because they won't have the people.
When the government cuts school funding, as 15%. Less going to the university than were like 10 years ago, because they cut it out of the budget back during the Bush Depression.
Sure.
That's where money has to come from too.
Right. Well, yeah, but there are so many different variables that play into everything. If you change one thing, there are unintended consequences that suddenly now you got to change 5 others, and then there's unintended consequences of that. True. And that's why the more bureaucracy that you have, the bigger the government is. Government is not there to run our lives. It's there to protect us. And it's, once you start putting more and more people in charge of things, it just gets more and more muddied. It's too many cooks in the kitchen.
Wow.
So I don't disagree with that. I do not. Yeah. Shall we?
But that's only my personal humble philosophy.
The philosophy of Brion Humphrey.
And now nobody's going to go buy my book.
I don't think so.
The next John Locke, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Are you Locke or Hobbes? I can never tell them apart. I don't know. Are you? Who else?
He reminds me of a friend of ours who shall go nameless.
Okay, you'll have to tell me off mic because it's nameless at the moment.
Yes, of course.
Now, it's 10:30, by the way.
Sure.
10:30 in the afternoon, Mountain Time,
Yes.
here at the University of Northern Colorado, where we do the Dave's Gone By radio program of the air with me, Dave Lefkowitz, my darling wife Joyce, and we've been joined by Brion Humphrey. Now, Brion, if you want to stay a little longer, we're going to do Greeley Crimes and Old Times.
Oh my gosh.
It's not scary. It's not as scary as a zombie. I think you can handle
Hey,
it.
if you can handle-
I think I got about 15 more minutes before my wife kills me.
So we'll start. Let's bring up the music.
Let him guess them then, David.
Yeah, no, I just need to do of course, our special music. Do Midtown.
Okay, you've got to get rid of this, Bubba. Greeley Crimes and Old Times, which are taken from 2 different columns in our local newspaper, the Greeley Tribune. One is called the Greeley Cop Log or Crime Beat. They change it every week, of actual phone calls that came into the dispatch at Wells County Police Departments, people calling for police help when they don't always necessarily need it, or in the way that they think they need it. And then there's a guy named Mike Peters who does a column based on what was in newspapers here in Greeley, Colorado 100 years ago. So he's looking in May and June of 1916. And don't be reading now. Now you won't be able to... He's going to guess them, so
guess
I can
them.
read it.
So
Okay.
do you want to read some of them?
No, you're much better.
Okay. Are you ready, Brion?
Yes.
And Brion Humphrey is going to...
That's the appropriate sound.
Greeley authorities went to Habitat Lane on a report of a cat stuck under a car.
This is an emergency.
It turned out the cat wasn't stuck at all. It was just lounging on the muffler.
So ask him.
It left and it did not appear injured.
Okay.
Greeley Crimes or Old Times?
Greeley Crimes.
What made you think that?
I don't know. It just seemed a little modern.
Yeah.
Probably
the
the
car.
car.
Yeah.
Well, they had cars in 1916, but yeah.
Otherwise, but 1916, I don't think it would necessarily be lounging under a horse and cart.
Under the auger machine, the automobile. All right, let's try another one. Let's try another. You're 1 for 1. Here we go.
So far.
You do better than I do.
Authority. Well, yeah, this one's kind of obvious. Authorities responded to 15th Street because a man called 911, which they all did back in 19.
Sure. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was 9, just 9 then. It was 9.
Well,
Called 9.
no, he dialed XIII. No, actually, what
would that be?
LX, or what is it?
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be IX?
Yeah. The man said he did something bad. However, he wouldn't say what.
And it's not a plot of your book, so
I did something bad.
really.
He whispered to a woman in a restaurant he was about to kill. There you go.
Old times.
No.
Oh, okay.
You're now one for one instead of
One and
no,
one.
you're 1 for 2. Yeah.
One for two.
Yeah. 1 and 1.
One and one.
No, that was new time. Well, there's 911. Well, of course, it was new times.
I don't know.
All right.
1916, they didn't have
No.
911.
No.
They had like operators that would
Operator, get me 911.
You just send the horse. Go ahead.
hit me the police.
Lassie, go.
Get me the McDonald's. I think they're charging 2 cents. A Johnstown farmer is threatening to sue the Cheyenne, Wyoming Police Department. Unless his false teeth are returned to him soon.
Who took them?
That's what you get when you eat a little America, you know?
Well, this fella was in Cheyenne when he got drunk on Wyoming whiskey. Was taken to jail overnight. In the morning, when he sobered up, he paid his fine and was released, but it wasn't until he sat down to eat that night that he noticed his false teeth were missing. He can't eat any solid foods because he's a hard-working farmer and he needs beef to keep up his strength. The teeth were either taken or lost while he was in jail.
Now, were the teeth made out of wood?
It doesn't say.
I'm going to say old times.
Yes!
All right. Woo!
2 and 1.
2 and 1.
Oh,
Yeah.
go
And by
ahead.
the way, they didn't send police car back then for his teeth. They just sent a chopper.
Or a chomper.
Like, yes, thank you very much. Authorities were summoned to 10th Street because the caller wanted to know what drugs look like.
Do I have drugs?
Is it illegal to have them?
Can I try it to see?
Can you show me what do we do with this stuff?
What do drugs
right,
look yeah.
Okay. Wow.
That's a
Well,
tough
you were
one.
very careful because you said summoned. So I'm going to say new times.
He got it.
Greeley
He's
crime.
really-
I have to say
you're
Greeley.
good.
What is Greeley crimes?
You're really good. He's
All right.
really
He's
good.
good at this. I know.
He's a ringer. He's a ringer.
I
You
see
showed him
that.
these beforehand.
All right. Authorities were summoned to a retail establishment in Greeley for a man in a winter jacket who kept coming in and out of the store. And then he peed on the bathroom floor.
Was it you?
No.
David, was it you?
No.
Okay.
No.
Oh, my Lord.
Not this time, anyway.
Wow. Old times.
Whoa. You tricked
No,
him.
I got him.
It was the
Okay.
summon part.
The
Don't let it
summoned and
fool
the
you.
retail establishment.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. He does that
Established
sometimes. David's clever.
1916.
Yeah, he does, you know.
Yeah. So no, this
2
was
for 2.
recent.
I'm okay with 50%.
Wait, no, you're doing great. Or are you
Since
three
it's
and
kind
two?
of a.
Yeah.
Is it 3 and 2?
Something
Maybe
like
3 and
that.
2. Yeah, 3
Yeah.
and 2. All right.
All right.
It's
Okay.
50-50 chance anyway, so I should at least be
Ooh,
50%.
some of these are tricky.
Well, our county clerk is taking some time off, a couple of days off, to go fishing in the mountains. After he heard, however, that fishing was not good at this time, he packed 6 fish to take with him. They're smoked trout. He said he doesn't like coming home without fish, and taking some with him will solve that
Oh my
problem.
Lord! What?
So it's like no matter what, he's gonna.
Yeah, but you don't catch a smoked trout. Normally you catch them there raw and then you cook them.
Unless they're from Boulder. Old times.
Yeah.
He's good.
Yeah.
You're good.
4 and 2, man.
Wow.
That is correct. That was an old time story about trout fishing in America. Here we go.
Wow.
Gee, I wonder if he'll get this one. The women's the Women's Christian Temperance Union, appeared before the Greeley City Council to ask that all pool halls in town be closed permanently. The owners have broken several laws, the WCTU said, including allowing children inside, opening on Sundays, and selling liquor. The mayor has said, Mayor Thomas said he will investigate.
And you have
New
to say
times?
it's not Garden City. It's not Garden
No, it's
City.
not Garden City.
Oh, this shows my lack of history. Well, how recent are unions? And I'm going to say old times.
The Women's Christian Temperance Union.
Yes.
You got to think about that one.
Well, they're still,
Yeah.
they still have Daughters of the Revolution.
Oh, maybe
so
they
they
do,
still
yeah.
have some,
Yeah.
some names that sound more Arcadian.
All right, okay, you're doing really, really well,
You're
bro.
doing well for your first
All right.
time. You think he's the best scorer to be the first time.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
Wow.
far.
Authorities responded to a report of an upstairs neighbor drilling and working late at night.
That's a plot too for
Upstairs drilling.
What's
Okay.
going on
But
there? Yeah.
the caller thought the neighbor might be putting recording devices in other people's homes.
Oh, excellent.
Yes.
This is a frequent call-in that,
Yeah.
that comes into the authorities about people planting things
Yeah.
or people who don't exist doing things.
Now remember, these
Sure.
recording devices could have been Victrolas.
So that's you trying to throw. I'll say new time.
Yeah.
Wow. You're doing really well. For the first
I
time,
know,
you're doing well.
I know. Okay. Oh my God!
Oh my God.
Hit like a siren thing, or
We don't have that, a siren one, I don't think.
do an important thing.
Oh wait, that's not it. Hang on.
No.
Hang on. Well, that's a.
Come on, this is very important. Find the right sound effect.
No, it's not
No,
that.
no, that's not. No.
Oh wait, how about?
Oh, not that
I gotta
one.
wait for that to end. No.
Yeah, okay, yeah, you can.
Will
do
that work? Okay.
Try one more.
No.
No.
Well, maybe try the scream. Anything?
Do you have a
when
scream
there's
on there?
no
There's
mouth
a-
open yet.
Oh wait.
That actually
Mouth
might
is
be
open.
appropriate.
Here's a scream.
Okay. Hobo alert! Hobo alert! Hobo alert! It's time. Yes, many times during this segment we get
Yes.
stories about hobos and chickens. This is a
Yes.
hobo alert.
Yes.
7 tramps.
7 tramps.
Yeah, I'm not talking about women in some of your high school productions. I'm talking about 7 tramps were arrested last night after they came to Greeley from Cheyenne inside a train boxcar. They refused to leave the boxcar and were arrested.
Wow.
Today, they're out working on farms in the area, which they agreed to do to stay out of jail.
Old times.
They do this all the time. So if you were a hobo in Greeley, or I guess in Weld County, you were immediately stigmatized and then forced into work against your will.
All right.
And then if you didn't do it, or you had some kind of you couldn't work or you weren't able, you were sent out of the county immediately.
They made
This
you
was
climb the
yes,
wall back to
yes.
Mexico. So,
This
yeah.
was this was the hobo treatment back then. Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So the police were not nice to
No,
vagrants
no,
back in the
no.
day. So what are you, 7 and 3 or 8 and 3 now?
He's probably
Something like that.
Yeah.
7. Yeah,
Pick
I
a
don't know.
tricky one.
I mean, I'm trying. Well, when they're arresting 7 tramps in a boxcar, unless Woody Guthrie were still
Well,
alive.
no, that's right, because we don't have a train now, so it's easy.
Yeah.
That was
Well,
a
and
given.
tramps is politically incorrect now.
Yeah, hobo.
Hobos. Yeah, that's no.
That would be politically incorrect too, huh?
Transient.
Homeless.
Transient.
Transient.
Yeah, transient, homeless.
The guy
What
who
would you
lives in the
say?
van outside Michener Library.
Underprivileged gentleman of a ripe age.
Oh, I like that. Yes. Maybe
Could
not
be
so
women
white.
though,
Maybe
so
some
maybe
were
not.
female
Yeah.
hobos. We
So,
don't know.
yeah,
We never
gentle
know. They
women.
don't give much detail about the hobos.
We call those sluts, I think. At least I do.
They
Hey.
could be kids. My poet
Yeah.
friend wrote a thing
Yeah,
about the
there you go.
orphan trains. They were wild out here.
Sure.
They get a train full of kids and you pick one. It's like, hey,
Oh, really?
free labor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we don't know who those hobos were.
Big Rock Candy Mountain, indeed. All right, here we go. Greeley police were summoned to a hospital
Okay.
on 16th Street for a report of a woman thinking that she was kidnapped. The woman
Another
kept
plot device.
the
Sure,
kidnap.
sure.
Like a hobo though. The woman kept calling 911. She was telling dispatchers she wasn't sure where she was, or that she was told she couldn't leave the bed, and then she'd hang up again. Eventually, a nurse got on the phone and said the woman was going through withdrawal, and the staff would try to keep her from calling 911 again.
Yeah,
Alright.
that's very nice of them.
Yeah.
Greeley crime.
Yeah, Greeley
That's-
crime.
that's
I'm not going to applaud for that because, you know.
Well, you picked it. You
a
picked that
hospital.
one.
Well, that's what's here. You know?
This one you could do.
Well, I'm
Do
going
this
through.
one.
I'll start getting lost if I start doing the. Let me see.
Oh God,
another-
that one's so funny.
Okay. In another retail establishment, a drunk man would not leave the store and kept insisting he needed to clean himself up or something bad would happen.
Another plot device.
Yeah.
Another guy threatening something bad, but not actually saying
No.
what. Yeah.
Zika virus.
Maybe that's actually interesting. Very could be.
Oh,
you see how
boy.
the mind works?
Clean himself up. Well, people don't do that these days. So, no, I would say Greeley crime.
So it's a new thing.
So a new thing.
Yeah, yes.
This one is so funny though.
All
Where's
right.
this one? Is
We'll get
really,
there. We'll get to
That's
it.
hysterical.
See, I'm no fun if I get all. I have to start losing some.
Yeah, you got to lose some of these.
No,
All right.
it's good to win. You can win. It's no worries.
Some
of them are
a
just-
Denver man
Mm-hmm.
claims that his son was kidnapped from Denver by a we were just talking about it, kidnapped from Denver by a Greeley farmer who wanted him to work in the beet fields.
There you go.
All right.
The man did not say if his son wanted to work on the farm or not. The man just wanted to know where his son is now and who the farmer was who took him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Old.
Yes.
Damn, this man can't
He's
be beat.
good. He's
Yeah.
just. He's like. He's
Well, I
like
haven't
Jeopardy
seen any
Ken.
beet farms, and I know that they're all out in
Yeah.
like Fort Morgan and Brush.
Well, that used to be our big cry. It was beets,
Yeah.
sugar, taters, and
Right.
then oil.
Used to
He's
be.
like
That's the
Jeopardy
key.
Ken. He's
Yeah.
like Jeopardy
I know.
Ken. You can't beat him.
He's too damn
He
smart.
just
He's a
knows
writer.
that
boy.
Yeah.
Studying too hard.
I want to push this button, but I have to lose one to push it, so I'll wait.
Okay. Well, all right. Here's one.
This one can be. You can
Was
more-
it retail?
This, no, this
We'll
one
get
can-
there. A man was in a convenience store, and wait, no, that's we just did that one. Sorry. This is a grocery
Okay.
store, and the man stood at the self-checkout for over an hour without realizing he had not swiped his card.
Like,
Kid,
don't you say like
drugs are bad?
Like, excuse
love
me,
people.
sir, can somebody please
Right.
help me check out? You know, it doesn't register my bag or the weight of the
Would you
grocery.
stand for an hour?
You know, it had to have been like Safeway, because
See, he's-
At night, they don't have anybody. You've
He's
gotta-
ready
well, I
to
think
do.
most of the day they don't have anybody.
Really?
Yeah, it's always very empty.
wow.
Sorry, Safeway.
He's deductive in this.
So yeah, I would say new.
Yeah.
Also because I don't like self-checkout.
Self-checkout.
Came around like 5 years ago.
You know what that would be called back then?
What?
Armed robbery.
I like
my
that
stuff.
self-checkout. That's awesome.
I'm
Okay.
self-checking out.
Let's try another. By the way,
Yeah.
just to keep your eye on the thing, it's
Yes.
10 to 11.
Okay.
How are you
I
doing?
should probably head out soon.
All right, let's do one. Do the one that you think is really.
Oh,
you
you're
want me
not
to
gonna
read it or you
get
can read
'em.
it?
Let's see. These are so awful.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the point. Well, I'll just do the next one.
Yeah,
then.
pick one.
Authorities were called to 14th Avenue for a woman yelling at the ground.
Okay. Wow. That's all you're gonna give me.
Some of these
And that's
are
all I
just-
got.
Yeah.
Some of these are more. That's a tricky one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm
'Cause
gonna say
there's no temporal element of
right
brown yelling
at
It
all.
couldn't-
And like 14th, I'm assuming has been here
Here
that
for-
long.
right,
So.
14th
exactly,
is always downtown, probably more downtown.
Oh, it
Years
might
ago
have
it was
been
probably
that,
the edge
yeah.
of town.
Right,
Now it's more downtown.
I'm just for old time's sake, I'm gonna say old times.
Oh, do your sound effect.
Burn!
Oh, that's not a very loud one. That's right. There we go. Okay.
Yeah. You know, she was yelling, no, but you're dirty. I'm going to wipe the floor with you. No, just
my
kidding.
goodness.
You let people walk all over you. No, just kidding. Just kidding,
Wow.
ladies and gentlemen.
Gosh.
I think we'll leave it there because we want Brian was going to spend a half hour with us. He's been kind enough to spend nearly 2 hours in the neighborhood, which is enough to destroy anybody's psyche, I
This
guess.
was fun. I enjoyed this.
Wow,
Good.
and he
That's
left a victor of the Greeley Crimes in Old Times.
Well, by yeah.
Woohoo!
You're,
I mean-
you're our Jeopardy Ken of Greeley Crimes in Old Times.
People don't
Yay.
even do this well on Wait, Don't Tell Me, I'm telling you.
Man.
So congratulations.
Thank you. Thank
we
you.
have a lovely
Thank you.
parting gift. We have a really old, ratty mouse pad.
Oh,
no,
good.
you should let him go in the. There's a closet of T-shirts.
Yeah, let's tell
And
that
you-
to
you let-
everybody listening.
Right.
That we have a giant closet here. Yeah.
Well, you tried to give me a non-functioning microwave earlier, so
Yes.
It's not non-functioning. It's marginally
Malfunctioning.
It's a
No,
magnificent microwave oven.
But
is,
David,
yes.
I was referring to the closet of T-shirts
Yeah.
because he writes scary stuff. But
Yes.
he has no idea of fear. You go in the
Until I get
closet, in that closet of T-shirts, you will have new appreciation.
Now, not as nice as this one.
Oh yes.
No, but actually, for being a great, fine, fun guest, if you promise to wear it here and there, we can probably give you a T-shirt and a really old raggy mouse pad.
Wow, not that one.
No, they've never been used, but they just look old and raggy, and I don't know why.
Right.
They're
Interesting.
distressed. It's just the look. It's
Yes.
distressed
Yeah,
look.
yeah, it's distress to look at them. Anywho, Brian
Cool.
Humphreys, your email, your
Your email.
Your
Let's give him
URL
your
again.
cell phone.
Yeah. So Brian Brion Humphrey .wordpress.com.
WordPress.
Yeah, and I'm on Twitter at Brian Humphrey.
Brian Humphrey. And forgive me, I kept saying Brian Humphreys. It's you're
That's okay.
singular. There's
Yes.
only one of you at this point.
That's right.
Unless you figure out how to clone yourself in one of your weird imaginings.
We don't know this is the real him. It could be some kind of a robotic or
is true.
simulation of Brian. We don't know.
This is true.
Yeah.
This is true.
That's how I get so much done.
Yeah.
Now that would make complete and utter sense. Well, thank you, Brian. Thank you so much for
Thank you very
for being
much.
with us, man.
Oh, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.